welcome back. This is the video on encapsulation, which is another pillar of object-oriented programming. We have seen lastly that abstraction and how to implement it, why to use it. Today we'll see about encapsulation. As I've already told you in the first video of this module that encapsulation is nothing but wrapping up of data. By wrapping up, I mean that you can take some data variables, you can have some methods, you can group them up based on the relationships that they possess in a class so that they can be used as a unit. Okay, so collecting different type of variables, different kind of methods that may take different values, that may perform different functions, can be grouped into a single unit, and this property of object-oriented programming, we call it as encapsulation. This encapsulation is basically implemented by the use of classes that we were using till now. In this module, we were using classes, objects, and data variables and functions inside those classes. So that is how we were doing the encapsulation. But the major thing that we have to keep in mind about encapsulation is whenever we group data variables and functions, we have to keep in mind the relationship that they possess with each other. Like when we group different type of functions, we can have them in a separate class, or we can have them grouped as a subgroups in different classes. Any function that is not related to a class should not be kept inside just for the sake that it is just a single function. We can keep it anywhere. No, it doesn't work like that. In a class, every data member of function should be related in some manner that they can be used as a unit. Creating a unit is a very important task in object-oriented programming, because here that we are using some simple programs, but as the program become complex, like in big technical companies or organizations, when the programs or softwares become complex, this encapsulation has to play a major role so that they can group different type of variables and functions into a single unit and then group those units in a module, so that each module should not have to be opened when an error occurs or we have to update something. We can directly go to that specific file, module, or class to update anything that we want, right? So encapsulation is a very easy thing, but it has to be done in a way that we don't mess up things and we don't put things with no relationship with each other in a same group. Also, if we want to incorporate encapsulation, it has to be done with the use of classes. As I have already told you that classes can have various data variables and functions. These can be private, protected, or public. The private members can be accessed by the functions inside the class only. Okay, all the data variables that are private are to be accessed by different functions inside the class itself. If they are protected, they can be used, or they can be utilized by different functions inside the class itself and the derived classes, right? So if you say there is a class A and there's a class B derived from it, then the private members of A will not be accessible to B, but the protected members of A will be accessible to B, right? And the third type is public variables or functions that are be accessed by any class or any module, right? So they can be accessed by anything. So that are the three types of variables or functions that can be declared in a class. We will see how to declare each of these type of variables and functions, and we'll see a simple demo program, not actual program. We'll see actual program after we have learned polymorphism. So we'll look at the demo program. So first of all, declaring a public variable is very simple. You have already seen that in a class, if we have class A, you can create a variable called as A equals 10. This automatically is a public variable. It can be accessed by its object from anywhere, right? Next is protected. You have also used it not knowing that we are using a protected variable. If we want to say class B, remember when you were using decorators, you were giving the age as underscore age, right? Underscore age. This is how you declare the protected members. I told you there also that every variable that starts with an underscore belongs to the class and its inherited classes. Okay, so this is kind of an protected member. So it can be accessed using self.h inside initiator function, right? That is how you create protected members. Lastly, private members. Just like the protected ones, if you want to create private members, you can say underscore followed by another underscore and then a variable, right? So this is how you can create a private variable for a class. This private variable will only be accessible inside the class by its functions, okay, or through its object, right? So this private variable has to be declared with double underscore. Automatically Python includes it as an private variable. If you use it as, with an object outside of the class, then Python will issue an error, raising an error that this variable is not accessible because it is a private variable. If you have to access a variable via object, you have to declare it public. If you have to use a variable inside a class and its derived classes, you can declare it using single underscore followed by the name. If you want to use it as a private, you can use it as double underscore. Okay, let us understand now the main use of encapsulation in a daily life. Suppose in a daily life scenario, you are creating a software where you are working on a project. This project is divided into two teams, team 1 and team 2, right? These both are tech teams, but team 1 is operating on front end while team 2 is operating on back end. Front end has nothing to do with back end unless and until an API is made, right? So these two different classes, if you term these two different classes, then these two have no relationship in between unless and until an API is created. So as a start of the project, you can create project as an abstract class. Team 1 as a class grouping up all the data variables and functions that are belonging to front end, and team 2 will only implement the functions and variables that are belonging to team 2 itself. These two do not have anything in common. If they have anything in common, they can share it using inheritance, or afterwards when an API is created, we can use that API and project class to link these two, right? So any function of team 1 cannot be included just for the sake in team 2 because these are two different things. That is how encapsulation works. Okay, so I have told about the demo program. We'll see how to use encapsulation in daily life scenario in the coming video. That is it for this video. Thank you.